Len was talking about he sent write-ups to paper to remember soldiers. So anyway, you started getting the copies of what you had sent in back to hang on the mess hall, right?
Yeah.
Wow, and the morale was changed.
You know, it's interesting. The first time I went out on one of the boats, I had my camera. This is before I had any journalists or photographers assigned. They were en route, but they weren't in Vietnam yet.
Right.
And I remember going out on the boat, and they said, "Lieutenant, we don't want you on our boat." I said, "What do you mean?" They says, "You know, these are fiberglass boats. The only thing that's protecting us is their speed and their maneuverability, and every additional ounce that we put on the boat cuts down our speed and maneuverability and makes us more vulnerable. And how much do you weigh? Well, that's you're endangering our lives."
Oh, gosh.
So I said to say, "Well, you know what? I'm pulling rank. I'm going with you." And we went out. And then shortly thereafter, the articles started coming in, the clippings. And next thing you know, from all of we had about 16 river squadrons, and every one of them saying, "When are you going to get on ours?"
Oh,
I'm so great.
then you know you're doing a great credit for your fellow soldiers. Oh.
Another thing we didn't just send out those press releases. There were other things that I thought the American public would be interested in, rather than just body count. For example, we had I remember an incident where a little village was wiped out. The Viet Cong were coming in from the north. The friendly forces were from the south. The villagers got out of there, thank goodness, but their houses were damaged. The crops were decimated. Any cattle and livestock they had was killed. And we said, you know, we've got to help these villagers get back on their feet. How can we do that? And now I wasn't part of this discussion. It came to me later, but the commanders that we had were, you know, how can we help this village?
Right.
Because we want them to know that we're their friends, and it's the right thing to do to help them. If we help them plant something, it's going to take a season for it to grow, so they're not going to have any income. We want them to now, what can we do to get them income right away?
Bless your heart.
If we find them some cattle, some cows, again, it's going to take a while before they're produced, you know, before they can get some calves.
Right.
Someone came up with an idea. They said, well, how about ducks? We sent some boats into Saigon and bought, I think, 4,000 ducklings.
Okay.
And I sent my photojournalist teams on. I said, let's get this on film. And now, first of all, you've heard of the Green Berets. The Army had the green. Well, we wore black berets.
Okay.
And so here, I remember one of the memorable pictures was a young sailor, might have been 22, 23 years old, black in the face, and holding his black beret and petting a duckling.
Aww.
But we gave those ducklings to the village elders and said, okay, this is a gift from the American people. You distribute them. They're yours. We're hoping that you can get back on an economic footing.
Absolutely.
And another story that we published, which I got a kick out of, there was a village that straddled a little canal. And some people lived on the west side of the canal, other on the south side of the canal. And they had a bridge, and the bridge was destroyed during a battle. So we needed help and get a bridge going. Now, we could have gone in and built a bridge, but people are so much more appreciative if they have some skin in the game.
Right.
So we went out, and I remember getting 4 large telephone poles. He said, okay, you can put 2 on the north side of the bridge, or on the north side of the canal, and 2 on the south side. And so the question was, well, how do they get, we didn't have any pile drivers, how are they going to get those in?
Right.
It was the ingenuity of the Vietnamese people. What they did, they took one end of each of those telephone poles, and they made it into a point, and then they carved a screw, made it into a screw.
Wow.
And then they were able just to basically screw them into the ground.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm impressed.
And then of course we provided them with rope and so forth, and so they were able to build a bridge. But we helped them, but we wanted them to basically
have that feeling.
Help that they're doing themselves. Yeah. So that was a story, and what we would do on these stories, the one on the ducks and on this one, I sent them out directly to major newspapers, and they were photo stories with maybe 5 or 6 photos and several lines of copy, a couple of paragraphs. And they ran on, many of them ran full pages.
Wow, that's
They
fantastic.
sent those back to me. In fact, one thing that was rather interesting, we had a helicopter pilot from Cape May, New Jersey. Why I remember that, I don't know. But he was promoted a couple times, and he got a couple medals. And we happened to have photographers around at the time, and they had appeared in the Cape May newspaper. And one day he said, "Len, you know what? The governor of New Jersey just sent my wife a dozen red roses in appreciation for my being over here." And that really made me feel good.
Oh,
So
yes.
I'm sure if when he got back to Cape May, he probably could have run for office.
Oh, how nice.
So that was some of the stuff we did. Now we also, of course, my job was when we would have dignitaries come to Vietnam, I would go out with them. I remember spending New Year's Eve, 1968,
Okay.
out in an area with a journalist from, I believe it was the Long Beach Gazette or whatever the paper is in Long
Wow.
Beach. But it was New Year's and people were celebrating, so the Navy wanted to be sure that we had some spirits. They provided us with 1 beer apiece.
One beer.
So we had 1 beer. But you know something that people don't realize, when Thanksgiving was on holidays, the military wanted to be sure that the soldiers and the sailors had turkey for Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
And they flew turkeys all over Vietnam, so everybody in Vietnam had turkey for Thanksgiving.
That really warms my heart to know that they were trying to look after you guys. You were just boys.
Yeah.
How old were you? You were young in
I
'68.
was probably 26.
Yeah, you were so young.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But it was quite interesting. Now, jumping back to New Year's Eve, at the stroke of midnight, here in the United States, on the mainland, we had firecrackers going off. And,
Yes.
well, there, I'll bet you the U.S. forces probably detonated or shot off $500,000 worth of ammunition.
Yes, so you would see that.
So we had our 4th of July fireworks, but it was live ammunition. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. I always see them bring Bob Hope with the Vietnamese, with the soldiers, but I always wonder, what are they doing to take care of our boys? Oh, that's good. Now, how about you were in Vietnam, what, a year and a half, or?
Well, I was there. I was actually there from the time I arrived in Vietnam to the time I left. It was a little bit more than a year, but 2 months of that I was in Japan.
Tell me a little bit about Japan.
Well,
Yokosuka, I was there.
well, let me tell you, when there were medical evacuation helicopters in the air all the time in Vietnam.
I'm sure.
When they weren't flying turkeys at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, okay.
The day that I was wounded, we were near the Cambodian border, and I was ambushed. Our patrol. Unfortunately, the fellow next to me was killed. The fellow behind me was given given a medical discharge. I was lucky, but actually, I was on a mission to that day to get a Stars and Stripes photography team to come in and do a story on our unit.
All right.
And they were coming down river as we were going up river. So after we were ambushed, we beached the boat I was on, and they came up, and I've got a picture of myself getting from the boat to the helicopter that landed to take me to Saigon. But within 20 minutes of the time I was wounded, I was in the hospital in Saigon.
Thanks to the helicopter pilots
fight.
and what they did, yes.
I've got to hand it to you. Now, the Navy did not have medical evacuation helicopters, but the Army, they called theirs Pedro.
Okay.
Or no, they called theirs Dust-Off. The Air Force was called Pedro. And it was the Dust-Off that was there first to pick me up.
Thank
and
God.
take me in. So I've got photos of me the day I was wounded, which is rather interesting. So
Well, I'm sorry you were wounded, but I thank God that you're with us today, and you've been contributing so much. There's a reason we're still here.
Well, again, as I said, I was in Saigon for a day, and they said, your wounds require treatment and recuperation. We're going to send you to Japan. So all of my money was going into a savings account that I could not access. The government did that for balance of payments. They didn't want all the soldiers and sailors spending all their money in Saigon
Right.
with the bar girls or the drinks or what have you.
Right.
And so here I am going to Japan. I wanted to buy some stuff, but I had no money.
Oh.
So I contacted my mom and dad, and I said, I did have a checking account, but it was empty. I said, can you put $700 in my checking account? And my dad begrudgingly put it in, but I had to tell him why I was in Japan, and I didn't want him to know I was wounded. So I said, I'm on a special assignment.
Oh.
And if you want to communicate with me and to correspond, my address is Lieutenant Leonard Yelinek, care of Naval Forces, Japan, Public Affairs Division,
Right.
FPO Box such and such. So my mom and I, we wrote back and forth on a regular basis, and I told them I was there on special
They
assignment.
didn't know you were wounded
They
at that
didn't know I
point.
was wounded. So now, I was there 2 months, and the Navy said, okay, we're going to send you back. I thought, I'd kind of like to talk to Mom and Dad, but I could certainly never make a phone call from a combat zone from Vietnam, so I'll call from Japan. So I called my mom and dad, and the very first thing my mom said after she got on the phone, she said, you've been wounded, haven't you? I said, Mom, why in the world would you say something like that? I told you, Mama. She says, because every one of your letters is postmarked U.S. Navy Hospital.
Oh, my word.
Moms know.
Moms have a way of knowing. Oh, okay.
But I figured, why tell them? Because all they could do was worry. So I thought I was keeping it from them. But she had the back of her mind. She knew something's wrong with that boy.
Oh, bless your heart for trying to protect them. But it's got to be hard for mamas to have their boys go away like that.
Yeah.
And then to get wounded. Yeah. So we're so glad that you survived that attack. And then you came back after. Did you go back to serve after you got attacked? Did you get out?
No, I decided. And of course,